Hello everyone, welcome back to Free Standards YouTube channel. My name is Rutuja Lingampalle and I am the interviewer and the producer of this video. We live in the most exciting times, and I say so because we are living in a world of startups and innovations. And from the place where I come from in India, it is an ecosystem that is growing with a huge pace. And here, when I worked on my startup ideas, on my creativity, it took months for me to actually develop all of those things and expanded my network, my understanding of everything that I was doing. I wanted it to be recorded and recognized under my name. That's when I got to know about CREABOOks from Mr. Allen, and I wanted to draft one from myself. This is truly a very, very unique concept of registering my innovation, something that I created, which would help me to even raise money in the future if I want to. So, Mr. Allen, welcome to this conversation. And could you tell us, how did this idea of CREABOOK came to you?
It's a long story. Would need to write a novel about this. One thing important is a reason to live. What is the reason of your life? What do you want to do on this earth? Milan Kundera, a Czech writer, wrote a book with a crazy title, Theory of Immortality. If you write a book, it may survive to your life, and sometimes for a very long time. Imagine about Newton or Leonardo da Vinci, who wrote his Codex some 5 centuries ago, and we read it more and more and find more and more ideas in it. So writing a book is, as Kundera said, something very essential, a very good way to give a sense to your life. And writing a book on a creation is the maximum you can do. So I worked, and now at a certain age, I try to do the maximum. That is, help people to write CREABOOK. And we are in this world of startups need CREABOOK.
So when this idea came to you about CREABOOks, who was it that you spoke to or shared this idea with? What were your recommendation and who did you recommend it to?
First thing, I'm from France. In France, we are, like many other countries, we are very concerned by books, and we always try to explain why such an idea comes in the mind of somebody. That was your first question. And the idea of the startups I met, and I met probably more than 100 of them, the bad thing for them is that their ideas are not recognized. They are not recognized for what they have done. Sometimes somebody cheat them and take their idea and make it a reality. It's already a nice feeling because their idea had a value, but it's also a bad feeling to be cheated and stolen this way. So I thought of the way to prevent this and identify who is the real creator. Who is the genuine creator? Genuine creator is the person who faced the problem, who had all the difficult dreams, nights about thinking about his idea for years and to develop it. It is not the guy who copy. The copier is not inhabited by the creation. The creation is something living. So the CREABOOK has been designed to answer this needs of recognition of the creator. And to have the real creator recognized is good for society, because the creator knows how to handle his creation and has a future for its creation. It is never finished. It is all the time improving it. I know stolen creations which have not changed for 30 years. And I know the creator as well. And in his mind, his creation is always living and changing.
So, do you think that your recommendation had an impact? Could you tell us about that?
It's difficult to say because the world has changed. I started working on authorite long ago, but I dedicated 10 years of my life to 10 later years. And during this last 10 years, things have changed a lot. So authorites has moved forward. and I cannot say it is my influence. I hope that my influence will start from this interview we are having today, and then I hope that the standard will disseminate. But for the moment, the standard didn't have any influence. In my life, I had other occasions in which I had an impact on certain organizations, certain policies. This concerned the standards in particular. I made a report to the French government about reference to standard policy, and this had a big influence on European Union making single market, and also in the world making the global world. Because the reference of standard, which was my idea, generated big impact all over the world.
Yes, I remember you telling me about your significant contribution in the ideation process of the single market of the global world. So that's around which I want to ask you is that did you personally take any part in building of the single market of the global world, or how did it go?
No, I didn't have a really active part in building the single market. Concerning the global market, I had one specific influence where you can see the print of my mind or the print of my soul. I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister about generalizing author rights to every field as the basis of intellectual property. This letter was transmitted to the President of the Republic, François Mitterrand, and François Mitterrand was an author, a literary author, and he was convinced by this idea. And he negotiated with President Clinton. I was told later, I did not know that this happened, but the negotiator of the WTO agreements for France, I had the chance to meet this person. And he told me that Mitterrand and Clinton had a phone call. It was the night. It was very late in the night for Mitterrand, not for Clinton. And they negotiated Article 10 of the TRIPS agreement of World Trade Organization. And this article is clearly under my influence. It says that programs of computers are ruled by the Berne Convention 1971. So we can reread the article. This is clearly my influence. Concerning EU, I didn't have much influence, but I was recruited as the first expert of the enlargement. That is, when the Berlin Wall fell, I was asked to organize reference to standard policy in all the 10 candidate countries. And I worked many years on this. And I also worked for EU on extending this policy outside EU in third countries. So I worked in Georgia, Morocco, Vietnam, Laos, Tunisia, many countries. For EU, but I was just an expert implementing this policy I knew very well.
So you already have a very, very rich experience. So here I want to ask, I know your experience in intellectual property, it is decades of experience. And you also mentioned about standardization as we are talking. So how come did you mix intellectual property and standards?
Oh, that is clear architecture which I borrowed to EU. EU wanted to unify the common market, and there were technical regulations diverse from one country to another country. So that's the reason there were borders inside EU. So to remove these borders, they decided, the European Commission, and this is called the new approach, to make common harmonized standard for all the countries. So, and these standards were made at world level by ISO, and this made harmonized standards for all the world. So the idea to have the standards are unique. It's not like technical regulations made in each country. So the standards are a way to build the global world. So the principle is you have a treaty provision which asks something. In the past, this provision was implemented locally in each country by national technical regulation, and it did not work well. The exchange were blocked. And now European Commission asked standard body to draft some standards implementing directly the essential requirements of international treaties. So this universal standard of intellectual property, which we have drafted, implements the Article 27 of the Declaration 1948 of Human Rights. So there is a requirement at international level, and we implement it directly through voluntary standard. And this is what we have done.
It's been a long time, as you said, that these provisions were already asked for. And since AEI suggested this standard, why isn't it active yet?
There are too many laws, people say. There are many good laws, and if they were really implemented, the world would go much better. But people make promise, say nice things, and these promises of 1948 were absolutely great. And if they had been implemented by the states, we probably would have a much better situation in the world, and we probably wouldn't have so many wars as we have today. So this was not implemented till now because there are some interests which are against the implementation, and we call that the establishment or the established order is against this implementation of free creation, free invention everywhere. Because if you are part of the establishment, you want things to stay as they are. You don't want small startup with genius invention destroy your market, like they did with digital photography. They destroyed Kodak. And all these old companies do not want of these startups making invention. They like to take invention from the startups if they serve their interest, but they don't want what the Austrian economist Schumpeter called the creative destruction of capitalism. This they don't like. So the way the old standard system function is in adequacy with their interest. They didn't want this Article 27, Declaration 1948 being implemented.
So what led you to think of this new IP standards? And I remember you telling me that these IP standards can limit the ecological catastrophe that we are witnessing today.
Yes, this is something really new, which I did not have in mind. Didn't have this idea when I started the standard, writing the standard in 2013. I was just trying to serve the startups and giving them the possibility to have some nice return of investment to offer to venture capitalists and to get the funding necessary to put their innovation on the market. In 2017, I was invited by Vice President Al Gore, who's launched world level an organization to fight climate change. And these were very nice meetings. And I discovered how important innovation was in this matter. If we want to change the problem of climate and the problem of ecology, we have to change our method of production. And for this, we need new creation and new innovation. This was already clear in my mind, but I discovered that if we do not put inside the standard some constraint to orientate the innovations, then they will go in the same direction our previous company. They will try to make more productivity, more money, and they will destroy more and more nature. So I understood at this meeting, President Al Gore, with Vice President Al Gore, how necessary it was to have charter of ethical exploitation inside the CREABOOks.
That's really very, very important. So we know that any new thing takes a lot of time to be implemented. So will we have to wait for another 20 years before CREABOOK is implemented and it becomes a standard? How do you see that picture?
Yes, I worked a lot of standard and I have a model in my head. The name is Edward Deming. He had great ideas of introducing quality in the United States but he could do nothing. So when General MacArthur went to Japan to lead the occupation after the end of World War I, he invited Deming with him in his team. And Deming had the freedom to introduce quality in Japan. And he made many things, and all the Japanese were enchanted by what he did. Price of quality in Japan is called the Deming price, and the economy of Japan in the year 60 managed to conquer most of the world market through quality. And in the beginning of the 80s, the EU decided that they had to reform the system because losses of non-quality were very high, 1/3 of the GDP. And they introduced the ISO 9000 standard. So Deming started in 1947 and ISO standards started in 1981, and they became general in probably 1990, 2000. So it's indeed a very, very long time. In the present case, the standard is fully written. So we are already in 1981, 1982, as far as comparison with Deming stands. And we are also in a time where things move much faster than because of the internet. There was nearly no internet at that time. It started at the end of the 20th century. Now you have IA, they start 1 week, and a few weeks later you got IA everywhere. So I hope that this standard will have the same destiny very soon. I think it will expand very rapidly because it is the interest of startups and the interest of the whole world economy and the ecology, of course.
Yes, so I'm pretty excited to see where CREABOOK takes us in terms of protecting our innovations and also making it a global recognition for creators, for startup owners to actually know that their creations and innovations are protected via this standard. Thank you so much for talking to us, Mr. Alain. This was a very interesting conversation again.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very, very good interview. It was a pleasure for me to discuss with you.